Things transpired a little bit against Ireland. Obviously, James Lowe pulling out pre-match, Ringrose being banned,
Matt Hansen being
Furlong,
injured.
yeah, Matt Hansen being out, Tadhg Furlong not making it, picking Peter O'Mahony. I don't want to get stuck into him too much. It was obvious. Some of those selections felt sentimental as opposed to what's best for Irish rugby and win the Grand Slam. And then France, as Jim said, I'm sure Jim said last week, if it's a dry day, France win this how they want. And the reality of it is the power game mixed with the skill set of offloading and ball out the tackle was just so hard for Ireland to defend against in that 20-minute spell. Nash gets sin-binned as well. But going back to the start of the game, I'm going to have a little moan. I'm going to defend my Irish friends. Opening spell of 20 minutes was brilliant from Ireland, right? But they just failed to get their noses through and break down that French defence. Credit to Sean Edwards. The French defence in the scramble was phenomenal.
And that's what we said, Andrew. Emotionally, when France are on, or any team is on, you'll gauge that by scramble D.
Yeah.
And when you saw the scramble D, you were like, they're on.
Yeah, it was on. But what I will say, a lot of people have said, France were really disciplined and they mixed their discipline with defence and the skill set. They're just impossible to beat. They weren't fucking disciplined. 13 penalties they gave away in the game, 10 of which were probably in the first half. I'm going to have a moan. Angus Gardner in that first 20, 25 minutes should have been the French player. There were so many penalties, penalty after penalty after penalty, and they weren't similar penalties. They're all for different things. But I thought Angus Gardner was too lenient on the French to start off with. Listen, France deserved to win the game. They were phenomenal in patches. But things transpired against Ireland a little bit, and I'm defending my good Irish friends because I like my Guinness and blackcurrant. And I thought Angus Gardner was a bit soft on the French. With some of their ill discipline early on. Yeah, a little bit. He could set the scene, fucking get a yellow card out and say, no, France, we're going to have an open game.
I'm more
aligned
a bit of a problem to my Irish friends than I am. I don't even have any French friends, I'll be honest. I maybe Emmanuel Hard-Nordicky, Yashvili. I'm trying to think of a few others. I got 2 French friends, maybe 3, maybe 4.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of Irish friends, and again, not to cause controversy or anything, I thought Angus Gardner was absolutely brilliant in that game. His communication, and you know what, you do have a point about the initial part, and we will talk a little bit more about this as well. Clearly, like I said last week, there is an issue with the leadership team in the Irish team around how they communicate, because he was fucked off with the way that he was being spoken to. A few times you saw that come through on the ref mic, but under extreme pressure on some of the big calls that he then relayed to the Aviva Stadium, I thought he was cool as a cucumber and thought he delivered some parts of it really well.
My only beef with it is if you watch the first 20, 25 minutes, the amount of penalties the French gave away, and he didn't whip a yellow card out. And that obviously, that they gained momentum, France did then, from shutting out Ireland. Caelan Doris gets held up, doesn't he? They were in and around the try line for sort of large spells, and France defended bravely, and the scramble, as you said, was unbelievable. But I reckon the penalty count in that first 25 minutes was about 6 or 7 penalties.
Yeah, because on that as well, Andrew, on the penalties,
if they're continual penalties, you've got to give a yellow card.
But on and stamp it out. So with that many penalties there, how many yellow cards have we ever seen in the first 20 minutes of a game? I don't know what the stat is for that, but you know where I'm going with it. And that doesn't say that you shouldn't give a yellow card.
Yeah, set the tone though. Like if a team is consistently infringing back-to-back penalties, but they're all for different things, a ref can. Luke Pearson had given a yellow. He'd have said, "Nah, enough." Bang.
Andy Bracey would have.
Bracey was good at Allianz Stadium on Sunday, bless him. But yeah, so I'm not saying that's my only gripe with Angus Gardner, that he didn't give a yellow in those opening 20-25 minutes when Ireland had all the dominance, and then France just got themselves into the game. The power across the team, the ball skill. We said it the other week about Don Lax, get behind the ball runner, offloading. You saw Boudon's try in the second half, 46 minutes in. Loose head prop, offload out the back to Luku. Takes another 4 yards. Yeah, that's Don Lax, mate. And then he's offloading someone else. It's after Thibaut Flamont clears out Peter O'Mahony's watching that back. One of the toughest guys to have played the game, or that persona, and he's gone down like I'm licking a kebab off the floor or something. And there was a big complaint around that, wasn't there? But I thought Angus Gardner got that right. Flamont kind of opens the hole with a clear out, but I'm sure Peter O'Mahony's watching that back. As a big hard man like you were, Jim, when you played, if you'd have done that, what Peter O'Mahony's done, are you a bit embarrassed about how quickly you've gone down, or is that just him trying to buy a penalty?
But well, both of them things. You could see when the camera panned to him, he was slightly embarrassed. I don't want to speak for the guy, but
Yeah.
he's a tough fucker, and he's only going down like that when you're trying to buy the penalty. And that's what I mean with Angus Gardner, with some of the decisions and his interactions with the players. And that was another one. He was like, no. And you know what? Another referee might have given that against Thibaut Flamand. But I just think the way that the game was going, the power, just how much more physical they were, and positive in how they played and they wanted to play, and maybe the fact that he felt bad that Dupont went off as well, and we could maybe get into that as well.
What's your take on that then? Because there's been controversy everywhere. Like your mate Fabien Galtier, no, I citing 65 player, man, no.
He's not Russian or Romanian, Andrew.
No, exactly.
He'll speak like this.
Yes, I citing Tadhg Beirne and also Andrew Porter's.
What did Andrew Porter do apart from hit Tadhg Beirne?
Exactly. What did Tadhg Beirne do except for get hit from behind?
Yeah, the thing is,
like it's a rugby incident. Yeah, like what do you reckon, Jim? For me, it's a rugby incident that the initial clear out, he's fine, but then because of how it's happened and how Dupont's bounced back to his feet, wide stance, and we've seen other players go through this, Jack Willis being the prime example. When you get into that long, wide base, you put your knees under pressure, right? And I think it's very unfortunate. There's no malice in it, but what was your take on it? Because there's been uproar from France. Everyone else seems to agree with what I think.
Yeah, I think the uproar from France is, one, it's their best player, one of the greatest, most famous athletes that's going to be out now for a minimum of 6-9 months. I don't know how quickly
he's back in about 3, mate. He's back in about 3 now, Dupont.
Exactly. So he might be a bit of an outlier with that. So I can understand their frustration. I have said many times that it's a horror injury. It's a career-ending injury. We've seen some of the best players. We don't need to go through them now. We've done it before, who've had their careers either cut short or ended in that one moment. I don't like the way that Ireland are off their feet at the breakdown. That isn't just Ireland. The All Blacks were probably the leading team that used to do that, where they'd fly in, all of them off their feet into the breakdown they'd be launching. But
and who else does it now, James? Who's the worst team for doing that now?
Don't say my South Africans.
He can't even bring himself to say it, can he? Yes. The South Africans do it.
South Africa and the All Blacks.
Don't defend them. Don't defend them. Don't defend them.
But you look at the way Ireland clean out breakdowns, extremely physical, body on the line, no care for their body, no care for the player on the other side's body either. And we know Tadhg Beirne, he's a friend of the show, Andrew Porter. There is no way in his mind, I can tell you this 100%, that he's thinking, that's Antoine Dupont, he's their best player or their worst player, I'm going to target the leg and going to fuck him up. All they're thinking is probably I'm going to fuck him up, but in a legal way, and I've got to be as unbelievably physical in this. And I know the slow-mos where his arm's tucked and he's being bumped. Antoine Dupont's leg is long. It's in a really awkward, stuck position. He's kind of around the side, and it's the force of 2 19-stone balls that has basically gone into the leg, and even Antoine Dupont isn't going to get away from it. But it looks clumsy. And on Fabien Galtier's comments, that's how they are. The French, that's how he is. He's emotional. You can cite him all he wants. Nothing will happen. I think they need to change the laws around entering breakdowns off your feet. Actually, I don't even know. I don't even think you can enter a breakdown off your feet. Am I right? Am I wrong? Do we know the laws? But this is going to constantly happen until they either outlaw the jackal, or they really police that part of the breakdown where you have to arrive into a breakdown with your feet under you. But that will make the whole rucks look completely different.
And slower.
And a lot slower, of course.
Yeah.
What do you think?
It's a hard balance. You're right, though. And you're 100% right about the law. You can't fly in off your feet, but everyone does it. And that's a big thing. Every team's guilty of it. The breakdown, it's an integral part of the game. I don't want to take Jacqueline out. People are like, take out the jackal. But then what do we go to? Rugby league where you get 6 tackles?
Counter-ruck. So you look at actually the benefit of the counter-ruck at the weekend. That looks good.
Yeah, but what you're going to see without a jackal is you won't see that many counter-rucks. You'll just see defence fanned out across the whole field. If you take out the jackal, because it's that skill set, and you look at the Curry boys at the weekend, right, for England. Look at Jack Morgan for Scotland. They've got that half a second to get in there. They win the battle of the shoulders, and they're unbelievable at it. And yes, we all know there's risks to going into every breakdown. There's risks. You were a line-out jumper, Jim. You could come down your ankle. Didn't you break your ankle coming down from a line-out? But that's a risk of being a second row, right? Because the fly-off ain't jumping like that. Risk of a fullback is doing the same thing when he takes the high ball. And that's the game of rugby, though. That's part and parcel as to why people love it. The fact that
but you say that on that one specifically, but obviously you're not going to take line-outs or jumping out of the game. And there's been some horror injuries. I remember Rui Lamont, career ender against Ireland, I think, going up for the high ball and did everything in his ankle and his leg. But that mechanism there, that's happening every year or 2 years. And we saw one doing the rounds with a lad in France who snapped everything. You're hearing lads scream and they're close to career-ending injuries in that position. So why would you just not take that completely out? And I understand the reasons why, but if you're talking about making the game safer, that is probably, out of all of the things you've mentioned there, jumping for the ball in the line-out, coming down, rolling an ankle, which we see all the time, the jumping in the air for the kicks as well, you don't see them as much. But that's probably the only thing where we see them horror injuries is around the jackal, and we're seeing them all the time.
But then the counter argument to that is how many rucks are there a game? So how many what's the percentage of each breakdown where there's an injury?
Yeah, that's true.
Because there's hundreds and hundreds of rucks in games where you can get blasted off the ball, you can compete for it. So I get it. I think the first thing to do is make sure it's policed and refereed properly, that you don't fly in off your feet. But then that boils down to how they're coached to clear out breakdowns and stuff. And, I'll go back to when we were playing. The neck roll's gone now, isn't it, right? And that was an active technique that coaches were using to get jackalers off the ball. And so it is about making the game safer, but we also need that competition at the breakdown. So we're, not watching rugby from the dark ages where it's 10-second ball at breakdowns. And so, we all talk about sub 3 seconds, don't we? And so part of the jackal job is to try and make it above 3 seconds, and part of the cleaner's job is to make it under 3 seconds.
Let's talk about some positive stuff, Andrew. Let's shift the dial and talk about the brand of rugby. Actually, do you want to talk about the 15-minute wait before the game even started at the beginning? Rob, was that you who tweeted that, saying get the old deal away from the pitch?
That was Fred, but yeah, it wasn't great, was it?
Well, I mean, it always happens in Ireland. It's true, it always happens. It's one of them. It is too long, but let's not go negative. Let's go positive. And let's just go BRA. How good's he? I called it at the start of the tournament. Who's going to be top try scorer? Louis BRA.
Louis BRA. I can say his name now.
There you go. He scored 17 tries in 18 tests, right? Ridiculous. And he's got 7 tries in the Six Nations so far. 8 tries is the record in the Six Nations.
He's got quite a few assists as well, hasn't he?
He's just ridiculous. He's 21. He ain't even very big.
Unbelievable.
So quick. Even Luku's trying to nick one off him. What about that finish where he's put the kick through and he's just wheels everyone as well? Like, he's a phenomenon. And going back to France and the brand of rugby, he gets into these spaces and has these opportunities because of his work rate, but because across the board, every player is comfortable on the ball, offloading out the tackle, defences can't set, and it's just an absolute pleasure and joy to watch at times. And that hurts me saying that about France because I hate the French.
Did you see him do like crossfield in his own 22?
Yeah.
It's just like mad having the confidence to do that.
Do what you want.
Yeah.
Do what you want, lad. He's class, isn't he? His finish was absolutely ridiculous. And then you got other players like Jegu. Who's ever heard of Jegu? Comes off the bench for Barassi in the centres. And he's like, they've gone a 7-1 bench and they've had 2 backs go off. And it didn't even touch the size, did it? They went to the power game. But watch the skill level of the French players. Normally you talk about power and you're just trying to run over people. These boys are trying to run over them and offload at the same time. It's just so French and so great to watch when it clicks.
What about when they had all 5 forwards coming on the bench at the same time? I think that's when all the points were scored, wasn't it? After that.
Yeah. Jim, would you have liked to have been part of the Le Bomb squad or coming off the bench, like with 4 of your mates who are all monsters going, lads, here we go. We are jogging on and we are turning it on.
Well, it looks cool as fuck now. When you're on the bench before, it was almost like a little bit of an embarrassment. Not as much as an embarrassment of being 24th man or 23rd man when it was 22 back in our day as well. But you're coming on with Julian Marchand, Cyril Miolbai, Aldegheri, Emmanuel Molfo as well.
Molfo.
I mean, that's just to name 4 of the biggest Molfos you've ever seen playing the game. And there's a real excitement. And look, there's a backlash on this as well, isn't there? In South Africa,
Gregor's not happy.
Who's not happy?
Gregor. He's come out in the press and said no.
I mean, you'd be more unhappy with people launching off the feet of rucks than bringing on a 7-1 because it is risky to do that. It's really risky to do that. You lose Dupont and then obviously Luku goes to 9 and you're thinking, well, someone else goes down. What are we doing here? Mofo's going in the centre. But yeah, I think it's really cool. I think
imagine Mofo in the centre as well.
A different dynamic to the game. That's what it feels like.
You talk about that bench coming on though as well. And also, when you align things up, it's ridiculous, those boys coming on. They were fantastic when they came on. They all had massive impacts, but Ireland got hit by the double whammy as well, didn't they? Nash's yellow card at the same time. And it is a yellow card. It's no more, the referee went through the process and it went to the bunker and the yellow card's right. But in that period, when Nash has got yellow carded, they score the try. Boudon scores the try on 46 minutes. Nash gets binned at the same time. And it was the question mark around Omani getting cleared out by Flamont. And then you bring that bench on as well. They score 2 quick tries through BLBRE and Jegu, and it's 99 no biscuit. And Ireland, they just didn't have an answer to it. And losing Lowe and losing Bundyaki after about 60, they just lost their punch, didn't they? And they were a bit scrappy. Prendergast was under a bit of pressure, but I still think Prendergast looks a damn good player. But people are like, oh, that's his Lions chance, he's gone. I'm like, no.
I think he's played against. Actually, I saw more about Prendergast in that defeat than we have seen him. And I'd seen about him in the wins where he's been on the front foot and he's been getting all the praise. I actually saw the measure of the man in that game. And I think this will be the turning point for someone like Sam Prendergast because he's the 10 now. And we love Jack Crowley and we can talk about this and we can talk about that. Sam Prendergast is there, guys. To throw an intercept pass and you saw him chase back and he nearly got there and he was devastated, right? He had his head in his hands. But then to actually finish the game how he did, throwing balls into that wide channel again and actually keep going at it, was the measure of the man, right? And I did feel, I don't want to sound like belittling when I said that I felt sorry for him. I felt sorry for him because it's in your own country. There is all this kind of hate coming from Munster and different pockets of the country because of the Crowley situation and how it's been managed. But I'm telling you now, like you can come back to this episode in 3 years' time if we haven't been cancelled or 4 years' time if Goody's still alive. And we're talking about Sam Prendergast now. Question about his physicality. I'm telling you now, this lad is the fucking real deal. And that is going to be a baptism of fire, which is going to take him forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you reckon I'm chasing back like he did if I throw an intercept when I played?
Yeah, but everyone's laughing, I think.
You mug, James. But you just go, that is a big learning point for him. And he'll review the game. I thought there were some good parts of the game to him. And I still think he'll go on the Lions tour. It was a bit of a moving weekend, wasn't it, for certain players? Everyone's talking about how many Ireland players are going to be in the squad. Scotland players have put their hand up. England have put their hand up a bit with a good performance against Italy, which we'll get onto in a bit. But it's stylistically, it's hard stopping that French team. When you talk about some of the stats as well in that, and it's all about post-contact meters, speed of ball, and meters in ball carries, and you look at the stats, average carry for France in terms of meters was 5.3 per carry. So you're making 5.3 meters per carry in a game. And then your average post-contact meters is 2.5 meters. Ridiculous. There's no stopping that. And that's where France just got ahead of the game and And then the offload comes, Jouet, and Unis Dupont. Aldrit said it, didn't he, at half time? He said, we're not happy and we fight for our leader, Antoine. Donc, we win.
I think that might be your best impression, that, you know.
Yeah, it's Gregory Aldrit, so I'm a bit scared of him. I'll do it properly. Pod.
Rugby pod.